Hi everybody. In this video, I want to take the time to distill what's happened in the AI world as the aftermath of DeepSeek is starting to finally slow down. So DeepSeek was massive news around 3-4 weeks ago, but I want to understand for us as an AI developer, as a product developer, or just as a software engineer, what does it mean now that DeepSeek is open source, now that the hegemony of US research companies seems to be in question? How should we adapt? How should we create applications? And what can we do with this information? So the first thing to know is that many people were talking about DeepSeek as this hedge fund doing an O1 side project, right? Just a reasoning model as a side project. We're starting now to learn that obviously this is not entirely true. This company, however, no matter what people will say, and a lot of people would be negative just because they want the stock prices to go up in the investments. But what you need to remember is that this is a company out of China. So which that means that if you want to use their product, obviously they will be the first to put up new capacities for R1 on their API, on their website. For example, they have this chat UI, which is similar to chat GPT and Claude from Anthropic. But you understand you're using a Chinese product. You are using a product which will, a bit like TikTok, keep all your data, will censor responses and answers. So what you have here is something that you need to be aware, you need to be cautious, that if any of this is private data, you have no idea what will happen with it. So be cautious if you're creating something that has GDPR laws, if you're creating something that has, a privacy focus, dealing with people's money. This is going straight to the Chinese government, no questions asked. It doesn't mean that this company hasn't made a great positive impact for humanity. They open sourced their whole research and the model is open weight. So this brings me to the wonderful news that a company like Groq, which is my favorite inference provider, and they're not sponsoring this, by the way, I just really love their product. They are focused on making fast inference chips. So they are an NVIDIA competitor or supplement, if we could say. And they have DeepSeek R1 already hosted. Took them a few days to get it up in the data centers. But what is really nice is that you can now go ahead and you can have an API key. I have, by the way, a video on how to use them as your API for inference. But you can also use it in the UI. So you can ask questions that would require a bit more reasoning. So what are the pitfalls of Web3 authentication for security? Something that if you'd get a canned response from OpenAI, which would just be its training data. But here you can see the thinking. You can really see that beyond their training data, the model is actually taking steps to analyze the problem, asking itself questions, prompting itself, doing test time compute reasoning, which we'll explore, by the way, in an explainer maybe in a few weeks. So this is available on Groq. And the beauty of this is that it's super fast. 386 tokens per second for a reasoning model. If you've ever used O1, sometimes it can be 30 seconds. Even O1 Mini, takes 10 seconds for simple questions. So I highly encourage you to use Groq for your reasoning model needs. But the most important news as a software dev, once you've started understanding you can use them for different use cases, is to understand where the future of these models is going. And for this, I want to see this first post by Gui Bibeau, I think a Berkeley student. Him and a few friends, they were able to recreate this using around $30. So they were able to train something similar to R1 on a more specific subset. So their more specific subsets is asking simple mathematics questions about numbers in a sentence. And you can see here, essentially, they trained it on a specific subset and they were able to recreate from scratch the same reasoning that R1 has that he uncovered using reinforcement learning techniques. So this obviously is not of much use, right? This is something that a kid could do, even if some of them would probably struggle. But what I'm trying to get at is that we are opening a whole new series of models that can use reasoning, test time compute, but it can be specialized. Now we understand how these were done, so we can put them up in our own RAG pipelines and try to make detailed reasoning. So we're creating now new kinds of models. And I think a good example would be this Agentica project. I also think this is out of Berkeley, which is insane. Here, they were able to create a mathematical model, a specialized math model, even though it can do other kind of reasoning tasks as well, but it's really good in math. It's so good that it surpassed O1 Preview that OpenAI had closed source and released around 4 months ago, I think in the fall. And they did it on a 1.5 billion parameter model. To put this in simple terms, it is a super small model. O1 is huge. O1 requires a lot of compute requires a lot of things, a lot of money to run. But now we can start creating these specialized models that are good at math, that are good at running transaction, running analysis on specific topics. We are on the verge of a series of releases of new models from open source, which can rival what you see from R1, what you see from OpenAI O1 and Gemini thinking. So this is what you should keep in mind in your application development. Do not put all of your eggs into a specific kind of model yet, and be aware that these are coming. Obviously, you might feel overwhelmed by all these news. I do, even though I follow this like daily for an hour or two I read. So what I've done instead is I've launched my newsletter, which I'm making the best possible attempt every week to summarize what you need to understand. You don't need the hype on LinkedIn, on X, the threads, the posts, everybody saying this is noise. So this newsletter gets straight to the point, summarizes the news for you. I write it manually. This is not an AI generated newsletter. It is my own, me and a few friends coming together and making this newsletter. So it's on my website, guibibeau.com. So if you like this kind of content, I'll try to make a video like this a week and get back to the explainers fairly soon. And please subscribe. Have a great day.